Larry, please.
One of the reasons we know so much about survivor guilt or traumatic neurosis within the immediate context of post-World War II is largely because of the restitution policies that West Germany administered. And as you know, in order to receive restitution, traumatic neurosis was almost required. And there was a great deal of research conducted at that time, all over the place. Henry Crystal and a great many other people, interestingly, came up with the hypothesis or theory that it was the systematic prohibition of any expression or ritual of mourning in the camps that had constituted the post-traumatic reaction.
I see.
Now, I mentioned that in order to continue and say that the state, the post-war state of Germany, that was administering this restitution policy, I think Adorno questioned whether this was a completely legitimate substitute, say, for commemoration. But in any event, the state that was instituting or administering the policy of restitution was also setting up as its cornerstone to this day, as part of the constitution of the new state, that one cannot question the reality of the Holocaust, and one cannot question the right of Israel to exist. So I'm wondering to what extent one must consider a certain German relation of mourning or unmourning to this history as fortifying and making up to a certain point even necessary the instrumentalization of this interruption of mourning.
It's extremely interesting to me. The conjunction, and I don't know that much about it, although I confess to writing a petition for somebody to get money from that restitution policy. It was, you know, loved using my narrative skills for that. Conjoining the prohibition against revisionism with the prohibition against questioning Israel's right to exist. Are these conjoined? Are they sequential? Are they linked conceptually?
I just know it's come up recently. I'm really not an expert on this legal situation. I just know that you may have heard that the Germans are now going to be requiring the passing of tests for immigrants to become German citizens, and that was going to be one of the questions.
Is that right?
Right to exist.
I see. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. You don't get to say in what form. Only one answer. I think it's very interesting, and I've always wondered about that Mitscherlich book on the inability to mourn, and its focus on the German population's failure to mourn. But I'm not sure they actually talk about the problem of mourning within the camps itself, right? That thesis was never extended in that direction.
But we have make a very short, I think, pertinent remark. But the tragedy here for me is that the same topic, this is what makes me very touchy about this, the same topic, inability to mourn, can be also used in very suspicious terms, like, you know what Zieberbeck did. His formula is the true catastrophe is not 33 but 45. Adorno, no poetry after Auschwitz, which means prohibit to the German to mourn and so on, prohibiting the Germans to come to do properly in the aesthetic, cultural way mourning. So I hope we agree that this is extremely touchy, problematic.
It is a touchy problematic, and I think, you know, one could also see how, you know, after 9/11 and the selective obituaries that became hyperbolically mourned became ways of investing mournful feeling in the construction of nationhood, and which also were based on a certain kind of denial. So mourning can do its own tricks politically. So, you know, no doubt about that.
And also Mitscherlich, I think, the reason why the Germans could not mourn was a fatherless society. It was not so much other situation. You had no addressee.
No, it's true. It became quite a justification for the reconstruction of the nuclear heterosexual family. I thought that was a kind of perverse consequence of fascism.
So that's what we hear, that we are undermining patriarchal family, that we are really hidden Holocaust deniers.
It's actually true. I mean, I can tell you what Sylviane Agasinski said about me. And she
All your students, I see your hands, but you have still to wait. Abital, please.
It's okay. Yeah, Abital.
I don't want to speak at the expense of my survivors and students, but nonetheless, first of all, thank you very much. I don't even know what gratitude means in this at this moment. Just a couple of nano remarks. I'm trying to track and follow your itinerary as you invited us to do, because you're working on this still. And I was thinking of the guilt of the story, which opens your questioning and prodding and the issues related to accountability and certain failures of transparency, of accountability, and so on and so forth. And so if we could retain that momentarily, and also somehow, I don't know if this is at all helpful, but I was thinking of, in a totally different light, or darkness rather, Bataille and his statement and a continual reaffirmation that we need stories in a moment of absolute laceration where sense has stopped producing itself, or meaning no longer can be summoned or called upon. So there's this need for stories that Bataille urgently uttered so often. I don't know what happened to, in your marvelous also circuiting of the relation to the story and the suicide and the very difficult implicit hemorrhaging of a certain kind of temporality in the relation of Levi to the story. It's not yet making sense, it might. I'm still in Bataille here. So the guilt that even telling the story or witnessing appeared to press on him is something that I was wondering about. In also, it seemed a little dissociated from Israel, but then I thought that this was exquisite, the way this story is impossible in ways that reflect each other and correlate between Levi and Israel. Let's say the state of Israel, what would its story be? Can it tell its story? Can it have a story? Particularly if the expense, I mean, there's an implicit economy of what it means to tell a story, also with the implicit promise that a healing might take place in telling the story. I don't know if you were, I thought on the margins of what you were saying, there's that fear as well, not only of obliterating what you call the loss of loss and or the memory, the really searing live pain, but what if the story would, as in contemporary Californian culture and elsewhere, even at the Yale Holocaust Archives, there's at least a supplement of healing that is promised. Isn't that true? And wouldn't that be an absolute travesty? But just to add to this again as a nano remark, one of the problems of the history, the impossibility of history when pressed by trauma is that it comes back only, as you suggested, as reiteration or flashback, right, and surface. And you said that there was an oscillation temporally between the past and the present, but it seems so foreclosive of futurity.